"You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Marco asked me. "Yeah, I am. We've taken it and barely fought back. Now they're scared, and they'll be more scared soon. Should have done this a long time ago." "Yeah, well, we didn't have the mighty warrior princess in charge before," Marco said. I heard the tone of sarcasm, but I didn't care. That's right, I thought, but now I am in charge, and now the Yeerks are going to pay. Jake would be proud of me when he got back. Or maybe a little jealous. Maybe even a lot jealous. That was okay too. Things changed. People changed. Situations changed. Jake had been the leader for a long time. Maybe it was time he took a well-deserved rest. "Oh, awesome! Rachel is now treating the title of the leader of the Animorphs like a bubble-headed Saved by the Bell character jealous of the head cheerleader. She is getting downright drunk with getting this on their success and starts making plans to hit the community center introduced back in number 33, The Illusion. But before they can get there, she spots a news report on the attack on the TV station and learns that the old guy ended up dying from a heart attack. Well, that puts a damper on things, but it's not like this was the first time an innocent person got hurt in this war. For example, every single host ever. I'm sorry Grandpa died, but in the grand scheme of things, you didn't even touch the guy. If this incident induced a heart attack, he was probably a goner sometime that week anyway. You've actually killed people and weren't as stressed about it. It's called perspective. The emotional whiplash has made Rachel pretty crazy. When Marco once again suggests infiltrating the community center first, she starts ranting about mutiny and how everyone obeyed Jake and then decides they need to attack with max firepower, which in her mind is polar bears for some reason. Because that's a battle morph not everyone is used to. And it's also not suitable for the warm California climate. And also we seem to have forgotten everyone has elephant and rhino morphs. Hey, you remember that time Rachel won a student award while balancing school and the fight against the Yeerks? Do you remember that time when she became incredibly self-reflective about her recklessness and her place in the team under the threat of David, and how she might react when the people she loved are hurt? And, of course, remember that time she contemplated the dangers of hubris? Of course you do. You especially remember that last one, because it was like 20 pages ago. I guess Rachel, the intelligent, competent, and self-aware warrior, is just something we can switch on and off like a light switch. The Animorphs charge the community center, but as expected, the Yeerks have caught wind of the surprise attacks, and a bunch of Hork-Bajir, the inspector, and, yes, Visor 3 is there. Visor 3 is always there. The Animorphs get caught between three kinds of trouble and get beaten to a pulp, made only worse when Visor 3 morphs into a hot sludge monster because he used his fire monster in the last book, and once Visor 3 uses a morph, he can never use it again. That's just, Andalite law or something. The Animorphs make their retreat, but Cassie is accidentally left behind and is captured. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. The remaining Animorphs retreat to the barn, and Rachel just starts crying. I sniffed and swiped at my eyes with the back of my hand. "Marco." "Yes? Did you want to say something to me?" He crossed his arms and stared. "'Cause I don't know if a macho warrior like you wants to be talking to me. I'm the one who thinks too much. I'm the boring one with a Hamlet complex. The one who says, 'Gee, Rachel, don't you think we should take a look first? Investigate? Prepare? Before we march into certain death?'" Okay, now I was mad. I'd screwed up really, really badly, but wasn't I punishing myself enough? For God's sake, I was crying. Not something I made a habit of doing. "I didn't know the Garrotron inspector would be there," I shouted, my fists clenched. Oh my God. So, among the hardcore Animorph fans, this book isn't very well liked. And the main reason for that is the complete mishandling of Rachel's character. I mean, all the characters are a little off, but that's nothing new for the Ghost-written books. Marco's more bitchy and unforgiving than usual, but Rachel... Wow, what did they do to Rachel? This is definitely another case of taking the most basic, the most broad notes on each of these characters and trying to guess how they all work. Rachel is the reckless and aggressive one, yeah, but she was never stupid and was never power crazy, and she never used tears as a ploy for sympathy. This only makes sense if you go with my theory that splitting and merging Rachel back in number 32, The Separation, resulted in a complete remix of her personality, because what we have here is all the worst traits of both mean and nice Rachel, without anything to balance it out. And it's just miserable to read. I'm going alone. That's final. Look, Cassie went down alone when she had to, when the rest of us were totally incapacitated. Marco shot back. Different situation. She had no choice. You do. It would be suicidal, Axe said. I cannot imagine Prince Jake approving of such an action. Yeah, well, Jake's not here, I snapped. Even to my own ears, I sounded like a petulant child. And if he had been, I guess, none of this would have happened. So it's Jake's fault? Tobias said harshly. That he trusted us to handle situations while we were away? That we chose you as an interim leader? That you made a mistake and now want to bail on us? I don't know, Rachel. Maybe you really don't deserve to be a leader. Tobias. Guilt. Shame. Overwhelming sadness. And anger. Why was this happening? How could things have gotten so bad? Gone so wrong? It was all too much. Too much. I couldn't. I quit. I resign. Let Marco be leader, I yelled, kicking an old wooden crate against the wall. A wounded raccoon moaned nervously in its cage. It's what he wanted all along. I'm out of here. You know, I don't know how these characters are even able to function with each other at this point. The complete ecosystem of the team just no longer exists. And that's probably the point, except for the fact that it doesn't seem justified with the stuff that came before this. Jake is not the cornerstone of the team, guys. He's the guy the rest of you decided was the leader because he was the most boring and average. He's Mario in Super Mario Bros. 2. But despite all of this, Marco manages to convince her to just come up with some crazy goddamn plan already to save Cassie. So she does. She decides to hijack an airplane and crash into a skyscraper. You know, of course. Yep, this has been your unfortunate pre-9/11 moment for the evening. See, there's this building controlled by the Yeerks that's completely hollow inside, and with giant hangar doors on the roof, and, well, that's how they get cloaked ships in and out of the Yeerk pool. Rachel decides the best way to get through this is to run into an empty airplane, but for some reason they have to run across the airfield in human form, because that's an easy way to be spotted and identified. Axe flies the plane towards the top of the building, and everyone jumps out and morph birds before it crashes. Rachel gets tossed around in the chaos of the explosion and winds up in the Yeerk pool by herself. She quickly locates Cassie, still in polar bear morph, who manages to escape from her guards. But both Visor 3 and the Inspector arrive. And Visor 3 has a bit of a challenge. My dear Inspector, perhaps you would like the honor of killing the Andalite scum before us. Wait, I have a better idea. Visor 3 paused and swiveled his stock eyes to look down contemptuously at his colleague. The animosity between the two was palpable, unmistakable. Because you seem to think it is so easy a task to eliminate these enemies of the Yeerk Empire, the Visor went on, I challenge you to destroy these two pitiful samples. Right there, right now. He waved an arm broadly around, encompassing the pool. I think it would be an inspiration to our brother Yeerks. To kill these pathetic earth creatures is no challenge for a creature with the speed and skill of a Garrotron, the Inspector answered. Rachel, maybe now's not the time to ask, but are the others with you? You're right, I said, every eagle muscle tense, my keen eyes watching, boring into the inspector, hoping to anticipate a move. It's a lousy time to ask, and the answer is, I don't know. Visitor 3 chuckled, a very disturbing sound. My dear Inspector, are you saying that you decline my challenge? I don't understand. You berate me for not having been successful in permanently subduing the Andalite bandits, and yet, when offered the opportunity to do so yourself, you refuse? I'm afraid I must take your refusal to mean an admission of... I accept your challenge, that is no challenge, the inspector spat. So the inspector starts making mincemeat out of Cassie and Rachel, but Axe, Tobias, and Marco show up in the nick of time. Marco morphed a cobra because cobras are also really fast. A fun fact, cobras aren't all that fast, and pretty much all snake strikes are slower than the average human punch. Snakes are more dangerous because of their flexibility and because they can be hard to spot. Garatrons, on the other hand, casually break the speed barrier and are fast enough to run on top of water, which, as we learned in Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, you must run very fast. So yeah, Cobra versus evil alien Barry Allen is just as much a mismatch as anything else against evil alien Barry Allen. But, because they're the good guys, Margot hits, the inspector slowly and painfully dies from the poison, and Visitor 3 has one less political annoyance to deal with. The Animorphs are allowed to escape because, Visitor 3's a nice guy. Jake shows up a few days later and doesn't chew Rachel off for her actions, and the book ends. Post-book follow-up. As I mentioned, Animorph fans tend to not like this book, and for good reason. But I find myself a touch more forgiving here. It's that small concept, character-driven type of story I prefer over the star-hopping, time-traveling shenanigans, and it shows us the Animorphs at their most guerrilla war-y, taking advantage of certain political situations and using collected intel to good use, which helps gives the entire series a sense of forward progression. The implied politics between Visitor 3 and the Inspector are really intriguing, and it's nice to see consequences to Visor already. This is also the coolest Visitor 3 has seemed in a long time. While I still don't understand why they had to resemble Andalites, the Garatron are an interesting new alien race that, alas, are never seen again, thrown onto the island of misfit toys along with the Lyrans. The action scenes are actually really well done, the airplane crash especially. That is, if you can mentally edit out all the needless sound effects. And overall, you can tell Kay Applegate wanted to do something interesting with the group dynamic here. Her outline was probably really interesting, and this is one of the books I wish she had written out in full. Because pretty much all the problems with this book fall on Elise Smith. The plot is good, the ideas are solid, but the actual execution leaves a lot to be desired. Smith comes off here as an incredibly immature writer, by which I mean it feels like this book was written by a 17-year-old. Paragraphs with way too much description, all those sound effects, and lots of sentence fragments. Not to mention making direct comparisons in the text to other works of literature instead of making allusions to them. I have half a dozen stories I wrote in high school that read just like this. And yes, there is the horrible, grating mischaracterization of Rachel. Or perhaps recharacterization, because this hyper-emotional, easily swayed Rachel is gonna get more mileage out of this series. It's annoying, but hey, if I can bounce back from Tobias' whole genocide thing, we can bounce back from this, right? Oh, I'm not supposed to mention that anymore. Anyway, overall, good ideas hampered by execution. I give number 37, The Weakness, a 4 out of 10.